Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning, Prime Minister.
Mr. President, are you ready for the press conference?
Of course.
Please come.
Excuse me? Could I have a moment alone with the President, please?
Of course.
Det gælder også jer. Would you care to sit down?
Thank you.
What will happen to Bayanov if we hand him over?
Let's not discuss that on a day of celebration like this.
I can't hand him over if you won't tell me.
My dear Prime Minister, it's up to Kyrgyzstan people and the Kyrgyzstan legal system to decide.
I mean, no offense, Mr. President, but I really need to know more than that.
Let me ask you a question. Why do you consider yourself a better and more democratic leader than I?
Why would you ask me that?
Oh, I think you know. How old is Danish democracy? 160 years? Ours is 20 years old. It takes time, Mrs. Prime Minister. It takes time. Kyrgyzstan people not used to being asked, they are used to being told. It is in the DNA of my people to obey the leader.
So if I understand you correctly, it is you, isn't it, Mr. President, who will decide what will happen to Bayanov?
Oh, are we playing games, Mrs. Prime Minister?
I hope not. There's a man's life at stake here.
Well, when our democracy is 160 years old, we can talk. Until then, I will not take any more arrogant lessons from you.
But you still haven't
I
answered my
expect
question.
you to hand over Bayanov before I signed any contract with North. Oh, by the way, I understand it is your custom to pick the journalist yourself at press conference.
Yes.
Well, I have a favor to ask of you. Here is a list of journalists that I do not wish to take questions from. Please respect that.
My nation believes in the principle of free press and will uphold and defend this in our Constitution. Do you recognize it? It's part of the OSCE treaty that you're signing today as the new chairman.
There is a time and place for free press and critical journalism. Today is not one of them. No more games, Mrs. Prime Minister.
Sørg for, at præsident Rosen får det her spørgsmål.
Katrine, du er nødt til at hjælpe os.
Jeg vil ikke snakke med dig.
Det her er ikke privat. Spørg Rosen om det her.
Hvad i alverden får dig til at tro, at du kan diktere mine spørgsmål?
Det tror jeg heller ikke, men du er nødt til at gøre det.
Jeg er ikke nødt til noget som helst. Her i landet har vi fri presse.
Statsministeren vil give dig muligheden for at spørge som den sidste. Og tro mig, det er et spørgsmål, du gerne vil stille.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, please take your seats.
Yes.
Lindsay McGill, The Guardian. Is President Grozan satisfied with the arrest of Vladimir Bayanov?
Oh, yes, I'm very happy with the help we have received from our Danish friends.
TV1?
Yes, can the Danish Prime Minister tell us how strong is the evidence against Bayanov?
That would be a question for the Danish police. I'm afraid I cannot comment on that.
Was that the last question?
Before we end this press conference, I'd like to say that the President and I have, of course, noticed the criticism in the international media concerning the fact that Kyrgyzstan is taking over the chairmanship for the Organization for Security and Democratic Development. But I'd like to quote President Grozan from his inauguration speech from 1996. Democracy is not a principle you can bend. It's either or, it's yes or no. And today, my nation, Kirgizia, has chosen to say yes to democracy. I think we have the time for just one last question. Katrine Fønsmark.
Yes, this is for President Grozen. Does your investment in Danish wind technology depend on the arrest and handing over of Vladimir Bayanov?
I have great faith in the Danish legal system, and I can assure you that I do not link the wind energy deal with the case against Bayanov.
And thank you. I think that was the last question. You can take some pictures now.
I really appreciate your answer to the last question, because I'm not going to hand him over.
And thank you very much.
Tak for i dag.